Welcome everyone. I'm Lilia from Territory 3 Kiwi Landing Pad Reimagined. We help support a community of Kiwi founders that are going global, and as part of that, we run these weekly webinars with different guest speakers, sometimes founders, both early and late stage, and industry experts on different things. Campbell is a bit of both, as I guess an industry expert in product management, having done that for quite a few years now, and is also a founder of dropstation.io, which is a new startup that you're working on in Web 3.0 and 3.0, and it helps creators and monetization and all that, but we can go into that a bit later. Really glad to have you here. I'd love if you could do a bit of a background on your story so far. How did you get into product management? What kind of roles you've had over time? Yeah, just a bit of your journey so far.
Yeah, sounds good, and stoked to be here. So yeah, I guess like out of university, I started a couple of businesses. I had like an ice cream truck and then a survival gear retail online business, and then wanted to kind of use like work in technology a little bit more because it could scale. I ended up working on an early stage e-commerce platform here in New Zealand, and then ended up going to Toronto, where I worked for a company called Sensibill in a product role. And essentially, we work with some of the biggest fintechs in the world to create new engaging experiences for their customers. I left that company, went to a company called Seta. Seta was a Sequoia-backed company. It was growing really, really fast at the time, and I sort of worked on. So Seta was a home concierge, so helped people manage their home, get all the bits and pieces done and off their plate. And I worked on this area as sort of the product lead on it, called the Home Hub, where it was one place to manage your home. Thumbtack saw what Seta was doing in this Home Hub and a few other things that we were doing, and decided to acquire us. And then I ended up at Thumbtack, which is a $3 billion company in the US. Basically, they're a platform for professional services. So if you want to find a DJ or a plumber or immigration lawyer, it's a great platform to go on. It's one of the market leaders, and marketplaces are really, really challenging. So it was an awesome place to do product. And yeah, I was lucky to be in a product team with leadership that built Lyft, the ride sharing company. And so they built it from the ground up, and a few other people from Google and Square. So sort of like really got close to how these types of product teams work, which was amazing. And then just recently left to start DropStation, which really we're working on the future of brand loyalty. So helping brands and businesses build out their Web3 ecosystem and loyalty platform.
Cool, amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you've been a part of some really incredible startups. Just a quick note for the audience. We would love this to be interactive. So any questions you've got along the way, do chuck those in the Q&A box. And I'll keep an eye on everything on the screen here. So if you do, any questions that come to mind, yeah, just chuck them in there. If we start off at the basics, so a lot of our audience will be founders, early stage ones who are trying to figure out, how to structure their startup team, and, what is product management? Because I know I've gone through the schooling system, and even that term never even came up for me. So I'm just, from your perspective, what essentially is product management?
Yeah, there's probably a better textbook definition out there that I'm going to give, but
Yeah.
the way I think about it is there's kind of when you're building out a new product or a business, you need to really understand what that product is going to be and how it's going to solve your customers' needs, and then also build it in a way that it's going to be able to scale, like beyond just small amount of user base. And so it's really this intersection between what the trying to solve the customer needs, the business needs, and then working with technology so it can truly scale. And then when I think about, okay, what is the real role of product, and this is kind of what I learned recently working with some of these companies, is there's sort of two parts to it. First off, you need to figure out what you're actually going to build and what customers want, and then you need to deliver it. So the first part is really about discovery, and the next part is about delivery. And I think there's a misconception that a lot of product people are just, responsible for just kind of like getting it done and helping engineers kind of build a bunch of stuff. But the biggest risk to a business is building the wrong thing. And product managers should spend most of their time, or product people, most of their time discovering what that right thing is to build. And so I think, just really over-indexing on delivering the software is a real problem because you can go in the wrong direction. And as a startup company and as a founder, you've got limited resource, limited runway, a ton of competition. And so it's so important to get it right. And if you can get product right, like you really have created this, like, hopefully a defensible advantage in the marketplace.
Awesome. And let's say, a founder's looking to hire their first product manager. What are some things that they should look for in that person to know, this person is going to be a good product manager, and where might they go to find someone for that role?
Yeah, I think the temptation when you're in the early stages is to go cheap because, like you you don't have a lot of money. But the problem is if you're getting someone that hasn't really done this before and, doesn't know the right way to kind of talk to customers and to, work with engineers and really has a good sense of the user experience as far as like design goes, then there's a high possibility that they might end up taking the team in the wrong direction. And engineering is the most expensive cost to most businesses, especially in the technology space. And so you really don't want to get that wrong. So a few key attributes that we definitely have looked for, and when we try and hire product managers, is first off, do they have a good product sense? And that's super vague and abstract, but what it really means is, do they have some sort of vision as to where, a product can go? Can they empathize with customers? Can they really sort of like understand their needs? And then how do they de-risk the whole business really, really quickly and learn fast? Usually really good product managers, they have a process that they go through, and it's methodical, so they can actually really unpack the customer's needs and build a really clear roadmap and vision that's going to guide the team. So that's the first one, product sense. And when you're hiring for a product person, that's really, really important, because if they have a bad product sense, then they're probably not going to be leading the team to build the right thing. The next one is being analytical. I think it's pretty important, and definitely more important as the business grows and there's more data coming back. But being able to look at data and actually make meaning out of it and sort of separate the signal from the noise. And so there's certain ways that you can test for that. And then finally is just leadership. You're working with a lot of diverse people, probably in the early stages, maybe a designer and engineers. But as the business grows, there's going to be more people coming in, like an analyst and whatnot. And a product person typically doesn't have much authority. They've sort of like got to architect their influence. And so good product managers will be able to connect with all those different people and rally them around a problem and a vision, and then allow them to kind of like help solve the problem together, as opposed to the challenges. Some product people, when they get into it, they think, oh, I'm the product person, I need to come up with this magical experience, these magical features. But in actuality, I guess like the hard truth is that most products fail in the first couple of iterations, and so you really need to get there fast. And so you want to kind of install this in the team that there is a high chance of failure, and we kind of need to get to the bottom of that. And then I think the really, really good product managers, which is almost like harder to measure, but you can get this in interviews, is do they start from first principles? Do they really get to the core needs that the business is trying to solve and the customer needs solving, and start from there?
Awesome. And in terms of building out a product team, now obviously this is going to be different for depending what stage your startup is at. how exactly do you go about building out that team? Would you let, say, the product manager take charge, or what kind of influence would you as a founder have in terms of, yeah, bringing in more people to work on product, and what kind of structure would that team look like?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is you want someone that's relatively senior coming in first because they're going to build the right foundations. I think as a founder, you want there's this risk where you bring someone in that's relatively senior and you're used to kind of setting the vision and calling the product shots, but you don't have time to be close to your customers as much as a product person would be. And so you've kind of got to give them a lot of autonomy. So I think now you kind of switch from this hands-on kind of founder role to, okay, I need to step back and let this person in and let them really get closer to the customers. And I need to just set that North Star vision where we're kind of taking the company and communicate a lot of the big business problems that, I'm seeing. I think some of the great CEOs that I've worked with, they're very transparent about the problems in the business. And some people don't like to admit that, maybe there's the margins are really low and we're burning cash at like crazy rates. But you want your product manager to know that, because otherwise they're going to prioritize the wrong stuff. And so I think that's like super important. And then just being okay if they're going to get it slightly wrong in the early days. I think, they're not going to have the context you have, but as the business develops, I think you just want to edit to make sure they're not going too far off track, and they're going in the right general direction.
Yeah, awesome. So it's great if the founder is supportive and transparent, but not too overarching in terms of giving them some space to delve into a direction that they are keen to go into.
And I think great product people love ownership, and they love a lot of autonomy. So you're just going to constantly butt heads if you kind of like get in the way of that. And it's a challenging dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. We've just got a couple of questions coming through already. We've got one here from Benjamin. How do you differentiate product management and product leadership? What are the key skills or tactics that you've seen? I assume this is different between small and large businesses.
Yeah, great question. I think product leaders are really thinking about that long-term product vision, and then they're really trying to understand how to structure all the product teams and build a product team that's going to be able to deliver on this and make sure that they've got the right people in the right seats. Whereas a product manager is going to take ownership of part of the problem or part of the product roadmap. And maybe even, in fact, I need to be careful saying this, because I think one thing that can happen is there's this top-down, this is the product roadmap, now product manager go and kind of execute, which I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And in fact, at Thumbtack and a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, they basically express some problems of the business, and then maybe some guidance as to what could be a good direction, and then let the product manager and the product teams define exactly what the goals are or the OKRs are for the next year, and then just like allow them to build their roadmap based off that, and work together with them. And so I think definitely a product manager is executing just part of the big overarching product vision, and the leadership is and they're kind of like debating with the CEO and they're fighting for the customer against the CEO to get more resources to be able to execute on the roadmap and make the right product decisions, and sometimes they're really hard. Some of these decisions can be incredibly risky, but great product leaders will have conviction that we need to be we need to move really quickly, and so we can mitigate these risks, but we need to take these big leaps to try and figure out if we're on the right track or not. Because the worst thing that a product team can do is spin their wheels for a very long time.
Awesome, great answer. Thanks for that. Another question from Andrew Tokley. How about the timing of bringing in a CPO level product person?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't, yeah, it's a hard one. I think when it starts, is there really a number of employees that you would kind of get into it?
Mhm.
I think it's just I think the earlier you can get someone that's a really, really good product leader, the better, but they're hard to hire. They're very hard to hire. Yeah. So I don't know if I've got a good answer for that. I think, is the product, do you feel really good about the product direction or, as a CEO or as a leadership team, do you feel that, it's a little bit weaker there and this could really cost the business? And then I think that might be the way you think about it. Because some CEOs kind of like take the product reins for a while, until they get to that size where they can bring someone in at the CPO level.
Mhm. Cool, awesome, thanks for that. Oh, actually, I just seen a comment in Andrew just made a comment. In the US, I think they use product leader as the person line managing product people. PMs typically don't manage anyone. Okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, Campbell's actually in San Francisco at the moment, but originally Kiwi. So kind of curious from your perspective, what do you see in terms of product management in New Zealand? Because as I said, it's not a common term over here. It is more of the kind of thing you get when you're going to the States, expanding over there. In terms of finding, a product manager to hire, what have you seen in terms of, do you see many good people in New Zealand, or would you say straight away look to the States to hire someone from over there with a bit more experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that because I'm not as
Mm,
familiar with what's happening in New Zealand because I've been out for too long. But I imagine there's some really good product managers from Zero and
mm,
Trade Me and
true.
those types of companies. And then
Yeah.
it's like really, really hard to find experienced ones.
Mm.
Yeah.
And because are there some, I know there's some programs over there, because wasn't there one that you were involved in? Would you say those sort of programs might be good for finding, say, that you are looking for a less experience, but someone who has gone through a bit of education in that sense? Are there any programs that you'd recommend sort of looking towards for those hires?
Yeah, I think yeah. So product school is amazing.
Mm,
One thing that the product leadership did at Thumbtack was took all the product managers through the Silicon Valley product group
mm,
workshop, which is expensive, but it's totally worth it because it's going to teach you to think like a Silicon Valley product person. And there's just a lot of hard fought knowledge and insight that's been gathered through that, and they do a really good job. I went through that and found it super valuable. One thing that we did at Seta when we were growing and we couldn't really afford a chief product officer, or maybe we just and maybe we just didn't like. It's hard to hire a chief product officer. It takes a while. Was to get an advisor in, and we had an advisor that was leading up Honey, that was acquired by PayPal, and then just like went on to lead product there. But it was amazing as a product manager to be checking in with him once or twice a week. And I feel like that's a really good way if you've got someone that's a bit more junior as a product manager, find an advisor that knows this, and then like you can make sure that you're not making any of these like big mistakes, and that might be the way to nurture someone into it.
awesome, cool. That's a good way to do it. A question from Jesse. How much would a senior product manager cost? I guess quite a
And
specific question.
in New Zealand, I don't know what it is in New Zealand. I know in Canada, and you might be ranging from 150 Canadian to like
Mm,
two. In the US, it gets expensive. It's like 200 plus USD. New Zealand, I imagine it might be like 130
that's a
plus.
bit lower,
Uh,
yeah. I guess that's just the other way with most.
Depends if you go junior as well. Like you can get yeah, yeah, but senior's expensive.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talent in the States is very expensive as well. I've noticed. A question here from Jim. This one might be quite in depth. For product management, of course, there is a customer linkage and UI UX. Apart from that, what is your view on who owns profit and loss for the products? In other words, it can relate to each product and the top line revenue coming into the company versus what a CPO role might do later down the track. And Jim is freezing on the Kapiti Coast.
Amazing. From the
No,
Campbell Pritchard.
there's a big wave of snow heading up the country. So
Oh,
yeah,
no way.
it's pretty cool. I'm up in Auckland, so I'm missing it, unfortunately. But yeah, rest of the country, lots of snow. Anyway,
Crazy.
next question.
Yeah. So the question was
Who owns yeah, profit and loss for the product?
profit and loss,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I think that you really want the product manager to be on the line for, the metrics that matter for the business. And so you can't hold them accountable to all profit and loss, the full P&L, but splitting up some metrics that will influence that, is a really good way to do it. And I think that they should be strong contributors to that, and they should be responsible for some of the profit and loss. So yeah, I would say, certainly my product lines, I had to drive revenue by X amount, and it was amazing because, like, one, you get to influence where the business goes and really contribute, but you kind of get a little bit of flexibility to figure it out as well. And we negotiated with the chief product officer as to how much revenue we felt the product team could drive. And then obviously you go away and it's like, okay, we're going to come up with a plan. Oh wait, if we want to drive revenue by that much, that's a lot, we're going to need more resource. And it becomes this kind of like, okay, almost like negotiation around, okay, we need a few more engineers to deliver on this like plan if we want to get there. And then the chief product officer might be like, okay, that sounds good, but maybe you can go away and get a bit more creative and see if you can do more with less. And then we go away and we come up with something, and we've got closer, and then maybe we're a little bit short of where we wanted, but yeah, that's how we've done it.
Cool, awesome, good answer. As a product manager yourself, what kind of problems have you encountered along the way, and how could, say, the founder have helped in those scenarios where maybe something didn't go quite right?
Yeah, I love this. I think certainly at one company we were very operations heavy because we needed to hit certain metrics in order to get our next round of funding. And it made sense to invest in people to get there quickly, but that actually meant that the product wasn't going to be, we weren't giving the product enough resource, and so our unit economics moving forward weren't going to be as good because we're like paying people, and people are more expensive than building a system that can kind of scale. And so I think just really digging down to the short term and the long term implications of some of these decisions. It's really good if you can get into the room with the CEO or founder, and I think the more the founder can support the decisions and the limitations, the better, because otherwise it just gets really tough. So I would say, just going back to give the product manager lots of autonomy and support, and just make sure that you're on the same page, because if you're not, it's gonna be really hard for them to drive results. I've seen it when an executive or the CEO didn't really believe in where the product was going, and that was really tough for the product team at the time. And I think I think you just got to get in a room and you really got to flesh it out. It's never gonna end too well. And usually this chief product officer would shield the team from that, and they would kind of like come to an agreement. But in the smaller in the earlier stages, if the CEO doesn't believe in the product, and then because most products fail in the first iteration or two, it's just going to be a told you so situation. It's just not going to be a good team dynamic. And so I think working through that, and I think the other way is just like, definitely was at a company where the product vision was super foggy, and it was like, yeah, we're getting to the company vision. It's going to take us another 6 months. And so and just not giving the product manager enough information. And I really struggled in this environment because I'm like, well, I don't really know where we're going, and it's really hard to solve problems when I don't know where we're going. And so I think just like really working hard to get that information to the to the product team is super important.
Awesome. If we look at so now obviously you've started your startup Dropstation, which I guess you're building out product for. How can you describe how you're going about that? Because is it just you at the moment? What does your team look like? Are you raising capital? And yeah, how are you building that out from a founder perspective? Which is
Good question. So it's me and my co-founder, and we've got one engineer, and we're trying to get as much traction as we can on the product front. We've got a couple of customers, which really helps, and some revenue. And so the next step is we're raising a pre-seed in order to deliver on our next customers. Like we've got a pipeline that we can't fully service because we just don't have the product built. And so really just being lean. And I think it's really tough. It's good to be back in the founder seat because you realize how limited your resources actually are, and how important just that like saying no and the prioritization really is. So yeah, I think just like ruthless prioritization is something that we're going through, and just getting clear on who we are and who we're not early on, and knowing that the product will evolve, and the more we talk to customers, the more we're going to learn about the space, and it's just part of the process. Yeah,
awesome. A question here, can't see the rest of your name. I think it's Cormac. In a startup, how would you best educate senior team members and getting them on the product journey when they've come from non-technical backgrounds? E.g. with Dropstation, how would you bring on people who are non-tech?
Yeah. And so is this hiring people that are non-tech, or getting people that are non-tech bought into how, like, a really good way of doing product, or being a product-led organization, perhaps? I think it's the latter.
A bit of both. Because of the first part, how would you best educate senior team members on getting them on the product journey? Okay, how about that one first? Yeah, how to educate team members.
Yeah, I think, and this is a real challenge. I've definitely been close to this one, where people expect the product team to just come out with miracles and it to go so fast, and they're just going to take care of it. And then especially sales and leadership, they've spent so much money on a product manager, or this like chief product officer or head of product, that now we got to get it. Now we're good. Now we're going to see this product really come to life. I think there's just this big expectation that needs to be set, that product it's going to take you a long time to get it that good, and expect that it's not going to happen the first, you're not going to get it right. You can't just wake up one morning and build what everyone wants. I mean, you can do a ton of user research, and we at Thumbtack, we used to have a user researcher, we used to have a content designer, we used to have an analyst, a designer, a product marketer, other product leaders come in, and we're all thinking about this problem, and we still get it wrong. And it's really about, okay, the expectation to set to these people is, the game of product really is that we have a hypothesis. We think this is really big, and we need to test it as fast as possible. And we know that this products tend to fail. I think like 50-60%, I think that's what Silicon Valley product group says, 50-60% of products fail on the first go. And so we need to understand that, if we're going to set these goals, and these goals are going to, or these OKRs are going to be set in that we're going to, blow it out of the water, and this product's going to yield, X% in revenue or growth. And we're only going to get one shot at building this out, because the developers have only got 6 weeks to build this. And so, after 6 weeks, we're going to launch it, and then it's, like everything's going to start happening. It's pretty unlikely. So if I were the CEO or in the executive team, I'll be like, okay, cool. We're going to build this. It's product development. It's going to take a while. Let's set expectations with leadership that, although it's good that we're going to get there in 6 weeks, probably the reality is it might take 12 or maybe even more to get there. And that's okay, because once we figure it out, it's going to be able to scale and it's going to get this business to a whole new level. And we just need to make sure that we got the runway and we set the right expectations with investors and things like that along the way to make sure that we can actually get there.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, some really great insight in there. And just on the other half of the question, yeah, how would you go about bringing on people who are non-tech? And I guess, yeah, I don't know, getting them up to date with the product journey. That's kind of, yeah, that kind of integrates with that, I guess.
I think, yeah, maybe it's like, yeah, maybe if I'm trying to read between the lines there, it's, there's people that are coming on the team and you're trying to be this product-led organization. And so you want to make sure that anyone that's doing operations or customer experience or whatever it is really starts to understand this space. And I think just like having your product manager or your product team or even yourself just go through product onboarding, help them know how you do product at the company and just how they can contribute as well. And I think that one of the most powerful concepts that I've learned along the years with product is it's the diverse thought that helps you build these great products. And so it's having people in all these different positions. And so the people in customer experience are learning a lot about customers, a lot, and they know a lot of the holes in the product. And so allowing them to be part of the product process, whether that's like, hey, just send us Slack to this channel here of something that you've noticed. So, we've got that on our radar. That's really helpful. And then same with the sales team. And then obviously, anyone that's out there talking to customers or even just thinking about the business, it's all good stuff. And really good product managers will go and they'll learn they'll build these allies in the organization with all these different people in different disciplines, because it will help them understand the product and they'll start wearing all of those hats. They'll have really good empathy for all of those areas.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, I reckon that's a really good answer. And Cormac, do let us know if there were any other aspects to that question you're keen to know. Another question from Andrew. Do you notice any differences between product leadership roles in the US, New Zealand, and Canada? Are there different expectations or are they the same?
Yeah, great. I think what I've noticed is that the top product people that I've met in the US, they're super pragmatic and they will step into a situation and realize that we're spending way too much time and there's quite a big risk of it going wrong. And so they might ask the question, okay, can we do this in like a third of the time? Without going into detail of like something that we're doing at Thumbtack, because I don't know if I'm supposed to say, but we were working on something that was a big update to our system, and it was I think we had, it was gonna take a year or two. And then the chief product officer came in and said, all right, okay, this is pretty big and it could go wrong. I think we really want to find out in a quarter. And so he just mobilized the team and gave them the resource to figure it out in a quarter. And that's just like, it came in with a magic wand to all the product managers and enabled them to figure that out. And I felt that was super strong. And definitely the others that I've met, it's all about speed and mitigating risks as fast as possible, because engineers are the most expensive and wastage sucks and you don't want to go in the wrong direction.
Cool. Good answer on that. Oh, that's yours, right? Yeah, that was yours. Button there. Are there different types of product management, and what are they, and how would you figure out which one is right for you as a founder?
Yeah, I think there's a few different types of product managers that I've personally seen, and this industry, for better or for worse, for instance, if you go to a bank in Canada, they'll call it a product owner will be doing what a product manager will do. It's super confusing, but ultimately there seems to be a few different roles for product managers in Silicon Valley. There's like an optimizer product manager, and this is someone that might go through and look at like maybe that they'll dive deep into data and they'll figure out, oh wow, if we just increased our price by X amount, it would increase our revenue by, Y, and this would be considerably high. And that's super valuable. And so they go in and they really optimize all of the existing solutions and experiences. Then there's kind of like a data or a technical product manager, and they're really responsible for diving deep into systems and sort of enabling all of these other teams, whether it's product teams or the data teams or design, and making sure that the systems are really well oiled, and they're removing a lot of the technical debt. And so they're very sort of they're probably your later stage companies when you've got like a lot of complexity and a lot of data to work with. And then you've got the experience, or kind of like the 0 to 1 product manager, which is they come in, this thing hasn't been done before, and they go out and they talk to customers and they figure out what the product needs to look like, and they build it out to this basically to a point where they've validated it, and then sometimes they pass it on to someone else to scale that, and that might be an optimizer product manager. I've been a 0 to 1 experience type product manager. So at Thumbtack, I was working on the full redesign of the customer experience and building a whole new home area in the experience. And so that was kind of what I was like best suited to. And then there's a growth product manager, which is all about, okay, how do we get more people into the product? How do we set up our referral system and all of that stuff? And so that's a different type of product. I probably missed a couple, but these are the ones that I've been exposed to a lot.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's good to hear that there's a range of different types of product managers out there, and also depending where you are and what sort of company. Just a quick note for listeners, we've got about 15 minutes left. If there are any questions that you're keen to ask Campbell, now is the time to chuck those into the Q&A or the chat. I'm also keeping an eye on anything product related, or if you're curious about DropStation. Actually, yeah, I would love to chat a bit more about DropStation and what exactly you are doing there. Like
Yeah. So the sort of what we've been, well, me and my co-founder, we've spent years trying to solve re-engagement for some of the biggest brands in the world. And way back in the day, I used to have like a little social media brand agency and work with small to medium businesses. And it's really hard to get customers coming back and solve this kind of like recurring revenue problem. And that we've typically relied on loyalty in the past. Now, with Web3, there's this new concept around ownership. And with Web3, you can certify if someone owns something. So brands and businesses can share ownership in their actual assets, and they create memberships. So people can now come in and interface with the brand, and the brand can say, hey, look, invest in our company, and we'll give you assets that you can then go and resell. And so we've worked with a festival that created a lifetime membership, and you could go and you could then like buy a piece of the festival map, and then now you're kind of in the community. So it's a new way to build community as a brand. And we think that it's loyalty's evolving much more beyond this like points and reward system, and it's really starting. It's going to be about how can you create these like new really sticky communities where you actually share ownership with your customers, as opposed to just selling them a product or a service.
Yeah, awesome. And I think you mentioned you're looking to raise capital to keep growing out the products in order to serve the customers that you've got wanting to use it.
Yeah, we're raising a $1 million pre-seed. So that's like kicking off, which is fun. Yeah.
That's exciting. Hope that goes well for you. We've just got a couple of questions that have just come through in the chat. Question from Dion: how involved is product in GTM and international expansion?
Oh yeah, the product can be very involved. You might, if you're trying to go offshore, it depends on the type of the business, but sometimes there's a lot of tax implications. There's all sorts of regulations you got to deal with, and a product manager will go in and sort of really own that and help. I remember when we were working with banks, we would have to go, like one product manager was trying to figure out tax across like all these other geographies.
Mm,
And then same with go to market. I think yeah, there's this tension between, does a product manager take go to market, or do you get someone that's like, doing business development to kind of try and get something off the ground in the early stage? And maybe someone in business development might be able to just go and like, I don't know, see if they can get a market started, and then they might hand it off to a product manager to kind of take it from there. So yeah, there's different ways you can do it, but yeah, I think it's like case by case.
interesting. I mean, have you seen any examples yourself personally where you or your team or another team has taken a product overseas and they've done something wrong and it's kind of backfired, or lessons learned from that?
I
Yeah.
think just getting text
Mm,
parts wrong, which was like a technical piece that was just super complex. But yeah,
mm,
I haven't seen it. I know it's really hard, and
mm.
it doesn't excite me as a product person because it's just, yeah. But it could be a fun thing to do depending on what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Definitely would not want to get your taxes wrong with different companies and get in trouble in that sense. Um, what part of your journey so far would you say has gone surprisingly well? Like, what have you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I think when I was at Seta,
Mm,
so what happened was we were this home concierge, and we were growing very fast. We were Sequoia backed, and Sequoia was for those who don't know, Sequoia is like a venture capital firm in the US. They're like one of the big ones. They got really good reputation, but they really push founders to move. And we were running out of cash, and we were hiring really quickly. And then the pandemic hit, and it was I think that's when WeWork went public, and also Uber, and it was like really bad valuate, like just a bad situation for fundraising. And so we really struggled to raise the next round that we needed. And then COVID hit, which was like a double whammy. And then we realized, okay, well, let's do something that's different, that can truly scale, because home services was really hard to do. And what I mean by that is, someone would come to our product and they would call up the company and they'd be like, okay, I want to get a plumber for my house, and I want to do a kitchen renovation. And so we were doing this manually sometimes, and we were building this system to do it in an automated way, but it wasn't very scalable. But we were getting these deals because we had an amazing growth team that bring in. And so it looked like we were growing really quickly, and we were growing our revenue quite quickly, but it just wasn't profitable, and the market wasn't going to invest a large amount unless we had solved profitability. And so we just got to the situation where we got into a room, and we we're like, okay, there's only one way out. We need to figure out how to scale this home services thing. And we actually got, and so we got two of our product managers. I was one of them, and we did a Shark Tank every week. And we would go out and we would talk to customers, and we had this hypothesis on Monday, and then on Friday, the rest of the company would get this virtual money, and if they voted on the idea that everyone voted on, they would get like 5x their virtual money and bragging rights. But it was really about us getting into this experimental habit and trying to figure out what is the next thing that we can do, and how can we solve a really big pain point in the market that we weren't really focused on. And then once we got to the home hub, which was just this one place that you can manage your home, things started to really kind of open up. Thumbtack came in, and we're like, oh, this is interesting. This hasn't really been solved before. No one's built this one area to manage your home. And then we moved to Thumbtack. And for me personally, it was amazing because I was the product manager on that. And then Thumbtack put so much resource behind me to build that out. and things just move. So it gave me an amazing platform. But yeah, that I you just end up in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I love that concept of using like internal Shark Tank. Was it through one of those ideas that you or your team had pitched that you end up then taking forward?
Yeah, there was parts of it that we took, and yeah, but what was really interesting, that taught me a lot about pitching, was the ones that would win were the ones where they had more customer empathy. So whenever I did a Shark Tank and I went and I talked to a ton of data, and I was like, yeah, the data speaks really, really well, and then my counterpart, arch rival, is coming out and saying, "Oh, well, our customer's really hurting, and then they saw this and they found it amazing because of X, Y, and Z." Everyone would just go for that, and then I realized, oh wow, that yeah, customer empathy really sells. Yeah.
Interesting. But would the empathy option have been the most effective in the long run, or is that more just the psychology behind people pick that?
It might be the psychology. It might be the same psychology that when you see in the newspaper that, someone got like tragic injuries, you sort of feel it more than when you see 300,000 people got, or three, that's a lot, 300 people got injured in this like hurricane. Like, yeah, it's different. Yeah,
Right.
you
Yeah.
react differently. There's like some
Mm.
studies on it. It's pretty crazy.
Interesting. Just had a comment come through from Grant saying we've adopted and adapted the shape up process which Basecamp developed. We work in 6-week cycles with 2-week cooldowns. Pitches for new products are led mainly by head of product. Having a structured approach has helped us a lot. Campbell, I'm curious, what is the best approach or model you've experienced for bringing structure to product development which delivers the best outcomes?
Yeah, that's such a good question because it depends on the size of the company and where you're at. I think in the really early days, it sounds like the company's relatively mature, and that sounds like a great cadence. The problem with 6-week cycles is, and this is what we had at Thumbtack, we had a quarter, and we were like, we're going to build this thing in a quarter, and we're going to get these results. And a quarter is not a lot of time because if it's a new idea and you're trying to build something that's never been done before, you really need to go out and talk to customers and kind of like do some research. So that takes like a week or two at least. And then you've got to design what needs to be built. And so that takes like a week or two. Then you got to build the thing. And then by the end, you're kind of just shipping it and you're not getting enough time in market to actually see the impact of the results. And so we switched to a 6-month cycle, but we were also a really big company with like 1,000 people, big product teams, like slow systems. And so, I mean, if the team can get the products out into market and they've got a few weeks to measure the impact of that and maybe iterate once or twice, then that seems really good. But yeah, that's short and it depends what they're building. So yeah, that's how I would think about it. I'd be like, okay, do they have enough time to figure out to do the discovery work? Because if we're just building stuff, then there's going to be a lot of wastage. And one thing that product teams have is they have this bias to build because there's all these like amazing engineers that are going to be sitting around if you don't start building stuff. But then as soon as they engage and they start building stuff, you create these overheads, and then like you've already created debt and you've slowed down from going. So sometimes it's best to just like, if you're not sure, to just like stop and just take the time and just, I don't know, like get the developers working on technical debt or something like that. And that's like really hard to manage. But yeah, that's how I think about it. Do you have enough time to make sure that you can do the discovery, to make sure what you're building is actually going to be of value? And sometimes you just need to build it and then test it really quickly. And then, do you have enough time to actually measure that impact? And then at the end of the 6 weeks or whatever it is, if you can then just assess and say, does it seem like we're on the right track? Yes or no? Then that would be an awesome cycle.
Awesome. Yeah, some really great advice. And yeah, a question from an anonymous attendee. Any experience of joining a startup above existing product managers? How can you best listen and learn, but also lead?
Yeah, you're coming in, are you coming in as a product person or just like an executive?
Good point. Um, Anonymous, if you do want to chuck in another question, just with the answer there. Let's say let's go with as a product manager, perhaps. I mean, above them in product.
Yeah, I think
Oh yeah, CPO.
uh, CPO. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've definitely seen this where a product manager was expecting to get, raised this head of product, and then a CPO comes in and it's kind of like, oh, who's calling the shots now? This is unmotivating. And
Mm,
so yeah, I think this is just something that you need to work with the career path of that person and try and figure out, were they really wanting to get to that level? Or are they at a position where bringing in a CPO would be massively valuable because they're going to get experience from someone that's like done this before and is going to propel their product career and be, teach them a bunch of stuff. And maybe there's a situation where, the product manager might not stay for as long, but as a company, you need to be making, the right decisions and bring the right leadership in to build out, like the product organization. And so maybe that's a compromise you might have to make. It's a hard situation.
cool. A couple more questions. Question from Jim. For DropStation, are you focused on brand owners as your customer, or is it the fan base of end users, or perhaps both?
Yeah, I think we've been exploring, and it's definitely we're finding that there's a lot of creators
Mm,
that want to build a stronger fan base, and they've been really interested in what we're building. And so yeah, we're trying to go through this process of identifying, who exactly our customer is that we're going to serve. Is it some of these businesses and brands? And I think we have to make a decision first, and then, obviously the long-term vision is where this platform that everyone can come to build their Web3 presence, and this new type of community that is much more effective for businesses to increase their customer lifetime value and build their customer base. But yeah, I think yeah, it's something that we're working through now. It's a really good question. It's a hard one, especially in
mm.
the early days. I mean, we haven't been working on this for too long.
Yeah, true. And I guess, yeah, it's definitely early days, and be curious to see, where you're at in 6 months, a year, and onwards, with your journey for DropStation. Just conscious we are at the end of our slot now. The webinar, we have been recording this, and I'll chuck this up on our channels within the next couple of hours. So if there's anyone watching and you know someone else who perhaps works in product management, or they're a founder looking to make a hire of a product manager, do send this their way once I've got this posted up. But otherwise, yeah, big thank you, Campbell, for sharing some really good insight into the world of product management for founders. Be really cool to see your journey over the next while as well.
Yeah, thanks, Lilia. And to anyone listening, if you've got any nuanced questions, I'm happy to see if I can help. Just like DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Yeah, really love helping. So yeah.
Cool, awesome. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Campbell. Catch you guys on the next one.